Hey, hey. Hello and welcome to BBA Radio, your last stop to hear from people who will give you game not only on how to set up the necessities on your day-to-day life, but who will help you heal, make sure you are triumphant in a higher version of yourself. Whether you're a 9-to-5er, a student, startup company, founder, entertainer, or side hustler, we got the juice for you. I am your MC and host, and I go by the name of Ange. Remember to make it black. Tune in and hit that subscribe button.
Yes, sir. What is going on, people? It is your boy Ange, and we are here today for what is, I hope, one of many legendary episodes powered by Make It Black here. I ain't gonna give y'all the official name yet, but powered by Make It Black. I am here with someone I have the honor of calling my brother, who, I've known for many moons now, and I've, just kind of came here he's come to talk about what I'm hoping to do with this platform anyways is, inspire, provide value for Canadians as well as people internationally, not to just shift, the city, not just to shift the country, not just the culture, but the world. And, I think that it's important to put people who have great experiences in that position at the table to be able to ask them those scenarios and those situations and to get their take on it and hopefully continue to inspire the younger generation to come, people who want more for themselves and, just hope to see the best or change even their families' lives. So I have Buffalo Bills number 51. He is here today, my brother, Eli Ankou. What's going on, brother?
How you doing, bro? Chilling?
I don't know.
Good, man.
Oh, man. First, I have to settle some beef with them first. This is how we gonna start off this podcast. It ain't even on no love shit. We gotta settle some beef.
What you got for me, bro?
So, question.
Yeah.
Naruto or One Piece?
Stop. You already know the answer.
I know the right answer. I know the right answer. That's the thing.
Look, you ask me anytime, it's always gonna be Naruto, bro. It's gonna be Naruto. I'm sorry. And
y'all,
everybody's got their opinion, but like at the end of the day, you got the Demon Fox, Uchiha clan, you got the Senju clan. Look, there's too much good storytelling going on here. And I know there's like good storytelling in One Piece, but like Naruto is it. Epitome.
But how far have you seen in One Piece is a real question. Like, I know it's some people be like, I'm at episode 300, I don't like it yet. I'm like, get the 500. Get the 520 song.
So that's the problem I'm having, bro. Why do I need to get to 500 for it to be
it's deep. It's deep. It picks up quick. But anyways. So, my brother, how was preseason? How did you find preseason?
Really good, man.
Yeah.
All things considered, I obviously got hurt so early on during camp, which managing injury once you're in the NFL becomes a little bit more urgent. Mm-hmm. I would say it's just kind of like this is your job interview, right? So you're trying to put film on. You're trying to put film out. Mm-hmm. So I actually got healthy by the second week of the preseason.
Good.
Did pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Got a sack at the end of the game, which was really nice to have, and obviously kind of aggravated my leg a little bit, and those things happen, and it's just a matter of perspective, and keeping the mindset of just not letting go. Obviously, right now it's just been tough, but all things considered, man, I'll be good. My leg will be back, in no time, and then
I'm waiting on that ring. I don't worry about that.
Yeah,
I'm waiting on that ring. Y'all see the jersey? The ring gonna be here next interview. Don't be confused. So I want to take things back a bit because a lot of people think it's a lot. I've heard it said a lot of times that Eli's lucky, or I'm sure people has come across you a couple times as well. And I don't think people realize how much of a unique position you're in, or kind of unique opportunity that kind of came your way. And it's not an opportunity in which that, here you go. It's something that you had to work constantly for. And I don't think a lot of people actually got to see those behind the scene hours that were put into it beyond practice, on and off the field. Luckily for me, I got to see a small glimpse of it. So I want to take you back to St. Peter Catholic High School. Question, because I have not a misunderstanding, but I might have dates mixed up, because from what I understood, you started football 2008, because I know I started 2008.
Yeah.
but I heard that it might have been 2007.
8.
8? Okay, so it
8.
was with Cumberland Panthers.
Cumberland Panthers, Pee Wee. You and I were running down the field for
Right.
the late practice conditioning. That was my first year.
Yeah, no,
that was my first year.
I still can't do all that. Conditioning is different. So now we got that certified. I can tell the story correctly. So fast forward, you went from Cumberland Panthers to start playing. You were at a French school first.
Yes, Beatrice Deloge.
Beatrice, shout out to them.
That.
Beatrice Deloge, shout out to them. And then transferred over to St. Pete's because we had a amazing football program. Shout out to them still. And so, kind of to walk me through what was the process from you going from a Canadian athlete to now transferring in your senior year to play in Delaware?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, it's definitely an arduous journey. It's something that I wouldn't recommend to anyone who doesn't see themselves going somewhere in the future. But at the end of the day, I was just a regular kid, albeit a little bit bigger than most. It wasn't like
the footage is hilarious. The footage is hilarious. You see like 6 dudes on him.
It was definitely an arduous journey. It was a lot of me kind of visualizing. And, I remember early on a man named Victor Todondo.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He was maybe 22 at the time, walking up to me and he's like, look, you could do this. You can do something with football. You could go and get you a scholarship, go get a free education in the United States if you just like put effort in yourself, and he was pretty much taking the angle of, I'm willing to put as much effort into you as you're willing to put into yourself. Okay. So whatever I gave myself in terms of commitment is what he would be able to give me.
Okay.
So, from the Pee Wee days up until, the high school days, it wasn't so much me just, I want to get to college football, or, I was just enjoying the game for what it was, I came in, it was our Pee Wee season, the first Pee Wee. I didn't even know what a fumble was. It was like, y'all have to explain it to me. I was like, what's going on? I was
messing up slot back so bad. Coach said, get on defense.
So, it's definitely a journey of learning and growth. And, by the time I did get to that point where I was like, okay, I want to go to St. Pete's, learn the game a little bit more. That's when I started taking the game a little bit more seriously. And I ended up going to a lot of camps with Victor. And throughout my journey, I've had a lot of people supporting me, as much as I've had people, kind of try to put me down a little bit, but that comes with any journey, right. So you can't really let it affect you. As long as you're repeating to yourself that you're able to do something, you can definitely do it. If you believe you can, you'll do it. If you believe you can't, you probably won't.
So what role so shout out to, I gotta give him his flowers as well. Victor is what I think is probably the most essential person to Canadian sports.
Yeah,
period. I've told you time and time again. I haven't gotten to tell him to his face, but just what I've been able to see, what he's did with Eli and what he continues to do for all these boys and girls when it comes to sports is phenomenal. So he clearly saw something in you. He had, he definitely has an eye for talent. And what kind of was there like a mentorship kind of behind it as well, you find?
Yes. Victor taught me, for my whole beginning phase, before I even get to college, he managed to instill this mindset in me of relentlessness. And that's what pretty much carried me through whenever I would travel to the States, get my name out there. It was that mentality of relentlessness that would carry me through those. And I remember even at one point, things started going well. I'm going to a few camps and, I'm starting to I'm doing pretty good for myself. And I'll always remember I got to Penn State for one of their camps, and, there's a little bit of a different air about me. I'm still young and dumb. I start getting comfortable. And, I'm not taking it as serious as I should. I'm kind of just, slacking on the reps. Right. One-on-ones comes up, and, I'm just like, I'll take my time,
Right.
And, in hindsight, Victor was getting so furious with me. He was impatient. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing here? And I think in the end, he ended up giving me a stern talking to, if I could put it lightly. And he's like, why are you here?
Mm.
Are you just simply gonna become complacent just because you're doing well here and there?
Right.
And you know, obviously that's the shortened version of it, but with time throughout that conversation, it's really starting to like burn in my mind. Like, this isn't one of those things where you're letting off the pedal whenever you start to see a little bit of success.
Right.
And that's something that carried me throughout. And I remember the next day after that, we go to Rutgers University for another camp, a Nike camp. And that was like one of my most dominant performances, for a camp. And I attribute that a lot to, again, the mindset that Victor gave me, and he definitely, there was no breaks with Victor. There was no relaxing. It was always on the gas pedal.
Right.
I remember vividly having to get up in the morning, 4:45, 5 o'clock, go to St. Pete's. Running to St. Pete's was my warm up.
Mm-hmm.
We'd run around the track, start doing drills, agility drills, boom, go back home. Running back home is your cool down.
Right.
Go get dressed for school, get ready for school.
Yeah.
And I went to my school day, and then we got practice in the afternoon, then workout. So it was like boom, 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 boom. But you know what? All of that prepared me for college.
Yeah.
As much as it was difficult, as much as it was a challenge, I felt like by the time I got to college, I was already mentally so sharp and physically so sharp that it didn't really phase me, getting up and for the early morning workouts. Whereas a lot of times, some guys, they get carried to college with their talent. They have raw talent. And I think that's not necessarily something I had from the get-go. I really had to work to be able to kind of keep up with the level of competition that was presented towards me.
So one of the things, like, to stay on the topic of Victor, like one of the things I've heard him say that to me is one of the, something that always stuck with me was, I believe we were at your house and we were having dinner, and like, you had like, your friends and family there, and something he had said was, if the kid isn't doing good in school, he doesn't want them a part of what he's building.
Yep.
And that's something that I think that goes over people's heads a lot, especially young athletes, where it's like, I'm coach is giving me the time, everybody's giving me the love and everything, and there's definitely scouts here who love to see what I'm doing, but there's a portion of the education piece gets put behind. So so speaking about education part, how did you say, like, your high school education, or how did your education overall, because you transferred from a Canadian curriculum to having to take like the SATs and go into like American university in college. So how did your education kind of play a piece or a part in where you are now?
So that's the thing is, a lot of times people think that whenever a guy like Victor would say, your grades need to be up. Let's assume that a school would even look at you, even if you had lower grades for football. We'll use football as an example. Let's assume they didn't have a minimum GPA requirement for you getting into that school. I think that what goes over a lot of kids' heads is the fact that you being able to pay attention in class is indicative of how much you're going to absorb when it comes to the film room.
Right.
How much you're going to absorb when the meeting room comes in. Because, I mean, if we're honest, in the NFL, you're spending 75% of your time in meetings. 25% of that might be on the practice field. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And then, a good bit of it would be, in the weight room, obviously, but the rest of that, you're in meetings all day, from 8 in the morning till, when you go home, at least in the NFL, when it's around, 4 or 5 o'clock, you're in meetings, and just insert a little 2-hour slot in there for practice. So it really is an indicator for how much you're going to be willing to do to keep up with the material. It's not so much about how much you'll absorb from social sciences or anything like that, but when presented with a challenge in a learning environment, how much are you going to absorb? How much are you going to be willing to absorb and apply yourself? And that's what it boils down to, because I'll be honest, a lot of the people that just don't make it in football are those who can't learn, can't absorb information, because you may be the most athletic guy on the field, but like if you're running around like a headless chicken, don't know what to do, and don't know what information is coming at you, you're just a really athletic guy.
Right.
That's it.
Oh man, no, that's definitely key points there. Something I want to highlight that really stuck out to me, because you mentioned before just how, what your day to day was, just in preparation. You running to school was like your warm up and whatnot. I was there, so where I got to see, a highlight for me was along the lines of your after school portion, not even on the field. It was because there's a lot of us who had football practice after school, 2:30, and then you have the practice after that. You know what I mean? Because we in multiple leagues at this point, right? But for me, what stood out was seeing you go to class after school. I believe you were taking English classes, additional English classes, preparing for the SATs.
Yep.
So that is the part which
shout out Miss Maine.
Shout out Miss Maine.
Yeah.
Shout out Miss Maine. I saw her. What was it, a year ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah. No way.
Yeah, no.
How's she doing? She's doing good.
Looks great.
Good, man.
Yeah. So drink to that. I'm gonna drink to that. Yeah, so you were taking your SAT, or you're preparing for your SATs. Something that I didn't know at the time, I believe I found out like within a year later or sometime later, was that you had to take the SAT more than once. Sorry, you didn't have to take the SAT more than once. You took the SAT more than once. So what is that process? What's the process, one, for a Canadian student having to take an SAT to completely change his curriculum, and like what's the thought process behind like, hey, I passed, I know I'm good now. Why you?
For me, I did it once around, and I did okay. I forget the exact scores, to be honest. But I did okay. I remember feeling okay about it, but I didn't truly feel like, for me to get into whatever program I wanted to, that it was enough. Obviously, the Canadian high school curriculum, I will say, is a little bit more difficult than when I got in the U.S. It's a little bit, I don't want to say advanced, but the material is just different. But I feel like it was a little bit easier once I got to the U.S. because of the habits we've grown in Canadian high school.
That's interesting.
I saw my score and I was like, you know what, maybe I'll do it again. Not that it was a necessity, but it couldn't hurt. Right. So I think once I really started studying for it, the first time was kind of like a wing it type deal. Once I really started studying it, and obviously, we were staying after school and, studying up. You were just kind of chilling with me. You were there every step of the way.
I didn't even have to take no SATs. I was just with this guy like after school. Yeah. No.
Took English, took math, and then started doing dry runs of the SAT test. And then I felt really good about it, and my score obviously improved. And I think again, it's all about the mentality behind what you're doing. It wasn't necessary to do another another SAT test. Just like it's not necessary for you to study after meetings.
Right.
It's not necessary for you to get home, watch extra film. So, it's just about putting in those extra little steps. And for me, it just so happened to be one of those extra steps for me to be like, I'm going to make it, crossing the border, going into a U.S. school.
So you've now made it out of Canada into the U.S. and it was Delaware was the first stop, and that was only the 1 year at Delaware.
1 year.
Yeah, graduated at Delaware, and then from there, now you went to UCLA.
Yep.
So I think just to give the young athletes an understanding to understand what that feeling is like, what's your thought process at this time when you're in Delaware trying to decide what school you're going to go to and just trying to map out the future in some sort of direction?
So by the time I got to Red Lion Christian Academy, which is the school I went to in Delaware, by the time I got there, I kind of knew which school I wanted to go to. I had received my first scholarship offer from UCLA, and obviously a few of them more rolled in afterwards. But to me, for a guy who was relatively unknown, a guy who was kind of like on the back burner for most schools, it meant a lot that the school offered me a scholarship pretty much right away. Once they saw me perform at at the camps and saw my film, to me, I guess the loyalty to the program meant a little bit, and it doesn't hurt that it's always sunny over there, and there's no rain. It's kind of you know what I'm talking about.
Shout out to LA.
Shout out LA. You know what?
Drink to that. Those are some good times.
So, by that point, Michael, I already kind of knew, where I wanted to go. So everything from then just became a mission, right? Learn the game as fast as you can. I absorbed as much as I could when I went to Redline, and it was a program where they had recruited a bunch of kids from out of state, in state, and it was a football program with a a small private school kind of attached to it.
Right.
When you really break it down, almost the whole starting lineup on defense ended up going to college. Somewhere. David Sills, the quarterback, he's now a receiver with the Giants, I believe. He's doing really good for himself, and it's now the mentality shift goes from like, okay, you've been playing this Canadian ball and kind of like you've been in your small circle and you've always been the biggest, baddest dude. Now you got to like transfer that over to the next level.
Right.
And high school football in the U.S. To me at the time was like, okay. Now we're like getting to that point where I'm preparing myself for college football.
Right.
And obviously I did well for myself. I can't remember the exact number, but it was somewhere to the tune of like 15 sacks for that season. Like it was like I'm doing pretty good, I played with a few dudes out there, and I got to learn a lot about myself. About the game, especially, and that's what kind of prepared me for college. Because as you know, when you play in Canada, you're playing 3-down football with specific rules, specific dimensions. You line up a yard off the ball. You don't necessarily have the same exact specifications as American football. So I think it was definitely a help for me to be able to see that and be exposed to like a new level of competition.
So at this time, you trying to, ultimately the goal is to be a athlete, a Canadian American football player. But how did your education kind of play a part in that? Because you're going for sports, but you still have a program that you got to be in. You got to still focus your time on making sure that you hold a minimum grade point average and whatnot. So like. What program did you decide to go in, and why that program? How did kind of really even is a part of you today, if it is?
Yeah. So, well, if we're talking about high school, then I pretty much had all the difficult courses already done, right? Mm-hmm. So, like I remember a few of them. Like I had to finish American history or American geography. Mm-hmm. So, like I had to remember all 50 states and place them all in, and it was very. I mean, it was at the end of the day, it was still fun. I mean, it's school, but wherever you make it fun, it can be. Right. By the time I got to college, I really wanted to go into communications. But communications at UCLA is a very, very intensive and competitive program to get into. I ended up not making it to communications. I ended up going into sociology. Okay. The study of people in masses and social tendencies.
What gravitated you to sociology?
Honestly, initially it was just like it's available.
Facts. I know them.
But once you're in, you're like, this kind of fits my style, right? Because I do enjoy the study of people. I think for me, the bigger challenges were keeping up with the reading material. When you're a full-time student, you can pull it off, but like you're thinking about like reading all these books when you already have meetings, you have football, you have all these things to keep up with. Yeah. But I mean, in the end, I ended up doing pretty well. Right.
That always feels like the hardest chapter. Everywhere, every place you are feels like the hardest chapter of your life. Right.
Absolutely. So that's pretty much how it was, and UCLA was a really good place for me. Obviously, you got to build a lot of connections out there. The city of LA, and obviously the school was really good. So it was a really good place for me.
So that's good to hear. I want to know, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Like, a lot of people think that, once you're in NFL or once you have one of these big positions that a lot of people pay attention to, that gets a lot of marketing. Yeah. that things are just, life has changed, all problems are solved, no money issues, no relationship issues, anything along those lines, which I know is definitely not the case. One of the things we want to bring on this platform is, bring financial literacy to everybody. So with that being said, what kind of financial information, or what did you not know about the football business? What did you not know about the football business prior to being a part of the NFL? What kind of things came after? It was like,
I would probably say exactly that. The football business doesn't necessarily care about your emotions.
Right.
It's very, whatever, perspective you look at it from, it can be a very cold business to get into. It's very matter of factly. It's very statistics driven. So look, when you, like, my first time getting cut from a team was the most devastating event I had felt in a while, because you're working towards this goal, and then I'll always remember it was 2017 Houston Texans. By the end of camp, you poured in all this effort, all this sweat, this blood, sweat, and tears, and finally they're like, "Look, you did really good for us. We appreciate you, but we're gonna have to cut you." I think as a guy from Canada, you're thinking like, "Damn, I'm gonna have to go back, and
you have to go back
I gotta
home,
go figure it out."
Right.
But obviously, luckily for me, I ended up getting picked up the next day to the Jacksonville Jaguars off of waivers, and that worked out. But it was definitely a hard lesson learned, which, again, this is a recurring theme in the NFL. Is you're never, if you stay in one place your whole career, man, you're one of the very few.
Right. Yeah.
You've either been cut or you're gonna get cut, as a general rule of thumb. So I think that was one aspect of the business that I was not necessarily prepared for. The emotions that came with it. With time and a few cuts down the road, you learn to adapt more easily to situations. If a team is like, nowadays, if a team tells me, "Look, like, we really like you, but we're gonna have to let you go," cool. At the end of the day, I realize that I do have a talent for the game. I do have the skill sets to play. Last year for me, despite the movement and up and down, left, right, at the end of the day, I was able to come and play a high level football and do well.
Right.
So it's just a matter of finding yourself within the game.
How do you? Because I'm sure there's a emotional, like you had mentioned, an emotional burden and things along those lines in which you have to experience and feel when it comes to like getting cut from a team. So is that something that the NFL even prepares you for? Is that something that they even kind of provide assistance for, from like the emotional, mental aspect? Because that can really shift an athlete's game, if anything.
It depends which team. I will say that since being with the Bills, and obviously right now, as I'm on a injury settlement, I kind of just taking my time to get this leg right.
Of course.
Since being with the Bills, I think it opened my eyes to just how effective it is to have someone be that person for nurturing the mindset of athletes.
Right.
Having that person in the building to help us out. And for us, we call her Dr. Des. She's kind of the glue that keeps players together and our minds right. Because at the end of the day, man, it's a high stress job. If you're in the business of football, it's not you're comfortable.
Right.
Constantly you're evaluated. You are never safe. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be making $3 million a year. You could be making whatever, practice squad salary. Nobody is safe ever. And that goes top down.
Right.
From the GM down to the players.
Right.
So it's just, it's one of those things that you have to kind of be ready for, the stress that comes with that. And things could change. In just a single year, I've moved all my stuff maybe like 6 times. That's once every 2 months on average. It's
breaking down the math.
If you're breaking down the math. So look, I will say, as a football player, stability is like, I envy those with stability. But at the end of the day, I do realize that I'm in a position where I'm able to do what I do physically for X amount of time. So I do want to enjoy having that fast pace, and I do want to enjoy every single piece of that process. So yeah.
How do you maintain your health? Because you're constantly going through. I know it was like in high school, just having to deal with those guys.
Yeah.
And so like now you're at the highest level of performance. How do you manage to maintain your health physically, emotionally, spiritually? How do you maintain that?
So one thing I come to learn with time is that obviously you want to keep your body healthy and do the extra things to keep your body healthy, and go see professionals, kind of just get soft tissue treatment on it or whatever it may be, stretching. Just that is as it is important to upkeep your muscles, it's also important to upkeep your mind. So for me, it's doing various exercises of I guess self-improvement or words of affirmation, reminding yourself why you're in a certain position, reminding yourself that you are good enough to do something, whether that's football or starting a small business. Reminding yourself that you have the ability to do that, I think, comes in very handy. And again, it's not just that; it's just an all-encompassing experience of keeping your mental state in check. All of us go through difficult life events, and it's one of those things where if you kind of neglect the mental aspect of things, man, it can really sneak up on you. You can wake up one day and be like, damn, like I'm depressed.
Yeah.
You could just wake up like that. And I think a lot of us, especially as, Black men, as people of color, we kind of like, it's a very taboo topic. And I think it's very important to remind ourselves that keeping our mental state of mind, well fed and well nurtured is a very important aspect of our lives. So I think for me, it's doing exactly those steps, and I've learned how to do that with time. It's not like I just like knew how to do this forever. It's kind of a skill you learn with time, and I think even at this point, like it's just a progression. You're always learning, always doing better with that. So yeah.
What would your advice be for the young athletes today, not just the Canadian ones, not just the American ones, but all young athletes? Since you have a platform and you're able to be in that position where you can continue to mentor these kids, because I know you already do it with Gridiron. Shout out to Gridiron. And so like, what kind of advice would you have for those boys right now, boys and girls right now?
In terms of that, I would just say, obviously, know your worth. A lot of times, at least when I was younger, I didn't exactly have a guide on, treating myself as well as I treat others.
100%. Yeah.
A lot of people are really hard on themselves, and they may make a mistake and they just treat it like the end of the world. I mean, it might be a very distressing thing, when something bad happens, or when you make a mistake. But at the end of the day, what really matters is learning from those mistakes. A lot of times the younger generation, again, this is all from learning it myself,
right?
Is we're really hard on ourselves and we put all this pressure on ourselves to, look, mistakes will happen. You learn and you move forward. And I promise you, life finds a way to, as long as you put the effort, man, it really finds a way to get better. And whatever aspect you may see that.
I always find like something I always say is like the hours that people don't see. I see people can see you doing, they see you at a 9 to 5, or they see you at the football, they see you doing whatever it is that you're doing, and they think like, they want to give you a pat on the back to say you're doing amazing, but it's like those hours that they don't see you even trying to get to that point, or have no idea what it is that you're envisioning beyond that. It's very tough to communicate with people, because a lot of people don't understand. It's something like you were just diving in as before. As a Black man, it's like, I know a lot of Black boys, especially, one of the things we're always trying to do is, change our mom's life, if not our parents' life.
Of course.
Because we see the struggle that they go through. We see the sacrifices that they're willing to make for us. And, we really want to get that bag or whatnot in order to change their life. But what do you feel as if, for that young boy or girl who's really trying to change their household, change
consistency.
Consistency?
Consistency. And this goes for anything, as much as it is football. And it's building consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And again, racking up those hours, productive hours behind the scenes when no one's looking. I'll always remember. You remember Daniel Nwasu?
Yeah.
Dax.
Yeah.
Dax.
Dax.
One thing that stuck with me with Daniel was that, you know, with me, I always had my habit of working out before or after school, right? And he might have been. I remember he was playing basketball. Really good player. Really good player.
Yeah, no question.
I mean, you should watch the tape. Watch the tape. In any case, you know, Daniel was that one guy who, I remember after school, we would end up running hills. And it was just something that stuck with me, is like, this guy is just as dedicated to his craft in basketball as I am in football.
Right.
And it pushed me to push myself even more than that, right? And you know, bless Daniel, man, he did really well for himself in basketball, but I think ultimately what led to his success as an artist is the mentality that he brought from his basketball experience.
You can tell. Like if you know, you know. So shout out to Dax.
Shout out to Dax, man. He basically embodies, you know, the grind. Yeah. Because look, this guy was I'm talking hours, you know, and he was in there before and after everyone on the court, just doing his thing. And you know, that's little things that stick with you, man. And you know, as far as the artistry goes and his music and all that, look,
it's whatever he decides.
Yeah.
So it's like there's very few people that, you know, there's some athletes that we have back in high school and whatnot, where it's like that, like all around athletes. I say, you know, like Sean DeClue was one of the boot. So shout out to him. You know, like he's like, there are a few people who's like an all around athlete, and definitely Daniel was one of them where, you know, whatever he decided to do, he'd be amazing at.
All the way in. He'd be all in.
And like it clearly has translated down the line into his work ethic. You can see. So if it's something that, if there are people who are surprised now, you shouldn't be too surprised. If you knew him, like how we knew him.
Absolutely.
You know, so
absolutely.
You know, again, this is a channel where we want to bring financial freedom for the world.
Yeah.
And you know, we've talked about various different topics, various different, you know, your history, background, and whatnot. One of the things I wanted to dive into, you know, a lot, again, where I was talking about, you know, athletes, you know, once you're at a certain place, you get inside the professional limelight, they start looking at you like, okay, well, he's got this big check now, and you know that check is he can go buy what he wants, he can ball out, and something that, you know, I don't believe. So let's put in a scenario. So you're a Canadian athlete who is now about to play for an NFL team. And, you know, they come to you saying like, okay, your salary for the year, here's $1 million. Right. So what my question is for you is like, so you leave with $1 million. Is that how it works? Like, how does it kind of work when you get there? Because I understand that, you know, Americans have different taxes and so along those lines. So kind of like, how does that work?
Let's just assume the amount is $1 million.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of,
flat.
You know, well, first of all, you're going to take a percentage of that out for taxes. The state, depending on which state you're in, mine right now is New York, is going to take a percentage. So will the federal side of things. They'll take a percentage. Now let's just assume you're stuck with a little over half of what you started with. As an athlete, you have to pay your agent. It could be 2 to 3% of whatever you make before taxes. So take another 2 to 3% of that.
$1 million. So so let's put it into perspective. So you got they tell you here's your $1 million.
Yeah.
Your taxes, you're probably looking at 50, right?
Damn near.
So you're looking at 50 off the rip. So you're looking at $500K.
Yeah.
But to pay your agent, that's 2% off the $1 million amount.
Closer to 3 if you're a rookie.
Closer to 3 if you're a rookie.
3 if you're a rookie. If you're the average player, 3. If you start getting into like past that first contract with your agent, then you can kind of negotiate a little bit. Okay. But let's say 3.
Right. So you're looking
for
at
the sake of argument.
3. What's that? 30?
Yeah, just about.
30. Okay, so it's about 30 off your $1 million. So if you narrow it down, you're sitting at about like 470.
Yes. About
that. So you haven't touched the field.
Haven't touched anything.
You haven't touched the field. You haven't made they haven't even called you onto the field yet.
NFLPA dues. You got to pay those guys that came before you. That's a good chunk of change. You got to pay your.
Can you explain that one? What's
basically it would be like a union, right? Union dues. It's paying the guys that will fight for your right as a player.
Okay. Right. Okay.
And those dues basically pay for the NFLPA to do what they do. Then you got your team dues. You know, the food that you get when you walk in the building.
Right.
You may think it's free. It's not free. It comes out of your paycheck. So that comes out too, right? Then you have pretty much anything for training. If you need that extra work, which is kind of essential, that extra work on your body, or you need to go work out somewhere, that's coming out. If you want to get an apartment wherever you're playing, that's coming out. Or you're talking the internet bill for that place, that's coming out. You need a car to get to work, don't you? That's coming out. So these are things that add up, and by the end of it, you're not going to be left with a whole bunch of that 1 million.
Right.
And that's where a lot of guys need to be careful. For me, I remember my rookie year, my whole salary, I held on to it. I think it's not till I got to the playoffs with the Jags, Saxonville, shout out my boys. It's not till I got to the playoffs that I decided, okay, this chunk of money I can use towards buying a car that I really like, or a car for the parents. They were using a Chevy Aveo, and it was snowstorming outside. Do you remember the orange car?
Yeah.
So in Canada, we have snowplows during the wintertime, and you get these mounds that are like 4 feet tall. You just can't get out. You got to shovel them out. So anyways, the Aveo couldn't even get to the mountain because the snow was so deep. So I was like,
we had some bad winters in the last couple of years too.
So I mean, the Kia Sorento, ended up getting one. It's been an amazing vehicle since then. It's our little family vehicle. It's been really good, man. And it's something that a lot of players don't register that first year because they see that big check rolling in, and I see guys right off the bat start buying designer stuff, like a $800 belt, $3,000 bag. They got jeans that cost $1,800, a shirt that costs $700. It's like, all right, bro, like, you have to slow it down.
That's for sure. You just spill a drink.
Yeah, man. Not only that, but like you start handing money out to family. Everyone's gonna start asking for money.
You try and like everybody says, I was here for you that one time. You remember that?
Yeah. And we know all the cautionary tales. I mean, there's a lot of players who we can use as examples who made those mistakes and learn from them. But you don't want to put yourself in a position where you making that mistake is the final warning. You don't want it to be too late. You kind of want to learn that lesson before it ever gets to that point.
Right.
So
is that not something that they kind of bring to the table? So when you're in the transition of becoming a professional athlete, I'm not sure if it's any different for any other sport, but from football, is it something where they kind of introduce you to the idea of what financial planning is, or
again, just like the mental health thing, it depends on the team. I will say some teams I've been on, they do a good job, and there's rookie programs where you can kind of guide the rookies towards that. But before you get to that point, like me in college, luckily I had mentors who were able to show me that and kind of like walk me through different aspects of doing your finances. And so I got a head start. But a lot of times, by the time these guys start learning about this, you still got that young and dumb mentality. It's kind of like it's not really telling you. You're like, I'm good. Like I
had that OSAP.
Exactly.
I had that OSAP. Allow me.
So look, there's not many formal programs for that, and I think it's definitely something that, like us as a community, athletes could definitely use. Going from that college level into the pros, and for it not to be too late, because by the time you get to the pros, and that and that doesn't include the recent NIL agreement in college football, where guys can make money.
Right. A lot more like partnerships and sponsorships and
and like during my time, it wasn't a thing to get paid for something because of my name. It was illegal.
Right.
But now you can get paid
And you can do it from as early as high school, is it? Or is it?
I'm not sure.
No, okay,
I'm not too clear on the rules, so I don't want to
no, facts.
But now you got kids who are coming out of their teens.
Right.
You got a big old check.
Yeah.
It's their money.
It is.
But how long will it last?
Right.
Like, where's it going to go?
Right.
And
it's a long-term game.
Very much so. And
right.
You don't want obviously the wrong hands to get onto it, because there is a predatory environment at times when it comes to money like this. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it comes down to being business, right? And you kind of want to keep those people away and give a clear path for young student athletes, making their way through this world, and have them be in good hands and have them manage their money in a responsible manner. Because it's not gonna last forever. As someone who has been injured multiple times in the pros, I will tell you, and I've seen it. The sport does not last forever.
Right.
So everyone's timeline looks different.
Right.
Just don't be the guy who is behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. How do you prepare yourself for a post football career, a post athletic career? Because it's something that you went to school for a certain subject. You might have found different interests throughout the years. So how is it something? Is it something that I'm sure they don't? I can't say I'm sure, but I'm guessing it's something that they don't prepare you for during. So how is it? Can you prepare? How do athletes prepare based off your relationships?
Yeah, me personally, look, I'm not going to go to the grave with all my money. So yeah, of course, I'm going to spend a little bit of it. I'm going to have, I'm going to have fun with a small percentage of my money and just do what I want. But I can't stress this enough. Put money aside. And I don't mean necessarily put money aside and bury it somewhere, or like put it in a savings account, call it a day. You can save a lot of it, but at the end of the day, with rising rates of inflation, you do want to be able to invest your money, whether that be in a Roth IRA for or a S&P 500.
So a Roth IRA is a TFSA. So that's the TFSA is the Canadian version. Roth IRA is the American version.
Yes, that. Your 401k.
Yeah, 401k is RRSP, so Retirement Savings Plan for Canadians. Yeah.
Exactly. We're talking, putting your money in the market if you're so daring, because obviously, as we know, the market can be up and down.
Yeah.
Buying property, buying land,
assets.
Not necessarily buying. And I know there's like an asterisk when I say buying cars or something like that, because obviously some of them gain value with time.
Of course,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's obviously the exception to the rule, but like buying appreciating assets. There's so many ways to kind of like make your money work for you. And that was one thing that registered with me early, is making my money work for me. So, and right now, again, it's a very risky kind of taboo topic, but like cryptocurrencies, it's I don't want to tell anyone to invest in a specific cryptocurrency, but
this show we're not recommending.
Of course,
no financial recommendations. This is this pure knowledge.
Absolutely.
All right.
And there's certain projects with the technology who kind of seeing into the future, and so for me, it's just about being able to do research into what you want to put your money into, and going from there. But spending it all certainly won't help. I've seen what happens there.
Right.
Saving it all and burying it, like a squirrel with its peanuts.
Right.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the best thing either. You kind of want to have a balance with all of those three.
Balanced portfolio.
Exactly. So that was pretty much my approach when it came to finances, and I've put enough aside and divested enough to the point where I'm like, okay, if the game were to suddenly stop for me, I'm comfortable with where I am.
Right. Are there any particular projects that you're paying attention to now? I know you've introduced me to one, but do you want to talk about them?
Yeah, I mean, okay. Didn't expect that. That's okay.
No, it's okay.
No, absolutely.
Okay. No, we're diving in everything.
Of course.
I respect what they're doing too. I like the concept.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I am into something called Constellation DAG. So basically, the DAG is the ticker for the Constellation Network. And essentially what the network presents is an opportunity for a new version of the internet, a more secure version of the internet. So for example, if you're talking about HTTP, when you type in a hyperlink, it basically is the least secure version of any internet website you can go into.
Right.
HTTPS is a secured version of that. HGTP is just the hypergraph transfer protocol, and that's basically a cryptographically secured version of both of those.
Right.
Essentially, they are using their technology or the technology of decentralized ledgers and basically cryptographically secured networks to kind of broaden our use case of what we have already. And they're implementing it into the real world. So they actually have a contract with the U.S. Department of Defense in light of the Air Force, in light of which is huge.
Right.
U.S. Transcom, which is basically the civilian fleet aircraft.
Okay.
And also, I mean, they're starting to work with the Navy as well. So you're seeing different branches of the military kind of like going into this, and it's not necessarily for the coin.
Right.
I mean, of course, the coin is you need I guess the tokenomics aspect of it.
Right.
But that's not the main feature of the network. The network itself works in a feeless manner. That meaning, for each transaction that happens on the network, not a single cent is paid.
Right.
It works instantly.
Versus like Bitcoin and Ethereum, where they have
you're gonna be paying fees.
Yeah.
I mean, for Ethereum, when at its height, you were looking at $60-$70 in fees for each little transaction.
Yeah.
If I were to send you $5, like
it's 60 just for the fee.
60 just to send it to you.
Right.
Whereas now you're looking at basically instant transactions. I mean, you're seeing 80,000 transactions per second on like something like just a few nodes.
Yeah.
And that's just the infancy of the network. Obviously, they're trying to expand within the space, and I see this network being a big player in the space of crypto in general. I mean, obviously, there's so much I could talk about in terms of their use cases and how they're bringing 80 plus real world businesses into the world that will actually help the way we do things. They have a CBD company who's using drones to grow their plants, their CBD yields, and and kind of like merging it with the market and how it can benefit users or investors. So again, this is just it's a tip of the iceberg, but if you look into it, Constellation is, I think, will
do
be
the homework. I've done a little bit of homework. You introduced it to me, and they've got some amazing projects coming. The team seems to be good, and definitely do your homework. Check out Constellation. DAG. DAG.
DAG.
That's the what's it called?
The ticker.
The ticker. That's what we call it. So I kind of want to just talk about you now. Like, I know you have projects that you're working on. You're engaged as well. Congratulations, ladies. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. But I understand you have started a charity. You have First Nations and Western African background.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you talk to me a little bit about what inspired you to start this charity and organization?
So my fiance and I have our nonprofit called the Dreamcatcher Foundation. Essentially, back in college, we took Indigenous studies, and we grew up around our culture, very presently. It wasn't like it was an alien aspect to us when we would go to the powwows, a lot, and it was a big part of me growing up. My mom made sure to have our culture be an integral part of who we were. It's not until I got to college that I was really exposed to the hardships of a lot of Indigenous communities. And so I think that in that time, I was able to kind of come to terms with myself that I wanted to help in some way, shape, or form. And I told myself that the day that I got into the NFL, I would start looking into that and kind of be in a position where I could help and kind of shed more light onto these issues. And so what the Dreamcatcher Foundation does is we shed light on issues such as the MMIWG situation, where a huge proportion of Indigenous women, especially on reservation, are being abducted or are being exposed to violence at an alarming rate, as well as traditional issues. I mean, you're looking at the sake of reservations, communities just not having clean water, and that's very present in Canada, to the point where at times you could set the water on fire. Like, think about that. Think about how bad this water
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
for it to literally light on fire.
Yeah.
So, you know, we bring a lot of attention to that. We expose kids to sports. Just in 2019, before the pandemic hit, we had our first football camp completely free of charge. This was in Ottawa, and this was our first of many. We're definitely trying to bring those back. Within the state of New York, the Seneca Nation, we distributed 200 plus bikes to kids throughout the community.
That was recent. That was within the last couple months.
Yes, that was in the spring.
Spring, okay.
And you know, props to the Seneca Nation, the Cattaraugus community, and it was huge because they matched everything. You know, they put as much effort into this as we had intended on putting into this, and I feel like it really exposed us to the idea that if we just put our minds together, our resources together, this could, you know, it could really help people. And for us, it was there's no replaceable feeling for, you know, when you give a bike to a kid who's just like, you know, like huge smiles, and it fills your soul with joy. And I think that it's something that Shayna and I definitely want to continue. And obviously bringing attention to Every Child Matters. I don't know if you remember the discovery of the residential schools and how it affected Indigenous communities, Indigenous people, you know, some of which I know personally who've been affected by this, you know, who were orphaned because of, you know, the kidnapping of children. And in a lot of situations, they weren't necessarily left in the best of circumstances. So it's just one of, you know, some of the many things that affect Indigenous communities that we really want to bring attention to. Again, I was raised with very strong African and Indigenous values, and so the art of giving is a pretty big part of who I am and who my mother is, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's definitely shown. You know, like you have a beautiful family, and like that's one of the reasons that we're you know, I love to say brothers, just because I've seen like the values that, you know, your parents have bestowed upon you. And I want to know, like, what do you want to see change? What would you like to see change in, for, you know, that you can do within your non-for-profit and organization, and just in the world in general? You know,
obviously, culturally, uh, bringing people together a little bit more. I feel like there's a disconnect when we talk about Indigenous issues, as well as people may have, you know, good intentions towards these issues. I feel like it doesn't just stop at, you know, putting out a social media shout out. You know, it's a good first step. It's an amazing first step. The fact that we acknowledge that some of these issues exist. But after that, you know, I feel like culturally, if we have an understanding of each other and we really start bonding in a way as people that doesn't necessarily just involve a quick little social media shout out, because I feel like, you know, at this point, social media is a good tool, but a lot of times it almost feels like it has replaced human interaction.
100%. Right.
And so just putting out events where we bring, you know, Indigenous communities along with different communities, and just, you know, get to know each other and build that rapport with each other.
That's one of the things I felt like, you know, growing up in Canada, growing up particularly in this city, Ottawa, and, you know, being so close to Toronto, is that we've been blessed to be so multicultural. It was, you know, unfortunately, it wasn't until high school that there was more like black people in the classroom for where we were. But, you know, I have friends who grew up with, you know, a lot darker classrooms. But, you know, as time goes on, it's impossible to say that you don't know someone of this background, that background, this religion, that religion. You know, a lot of my values have changed over life just because of these different restrictions and mindsets that people, I feel as if you have to be inside a box. Like, you know, we went to a Catholic school, but beyond being Catholic school, I've have how many Muslim friends, which, you know, I resonate a little bit more with their values and things that they represent. So it's something that, like, you know, I love to hear you say it, is that we really need to work on working together, and that's understanding each other, taking the time to listen. Because even prior to us turning on the camera, we're having a conversation about, like, you know, family and understanding, you know, not everything's always okay, but it's important to care.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't think people take enough time to do, is to really check to see if people are okay. Because we were in a pandemic for 2 years, 3 years, however many years at this point, right? And how many times did you actually check on somebody or ask if you're okay? And beyond them, ask if their family's okay.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? Because you never know what is going on throughout the household. People go to work with smiles on their faces every day, but there's stuff going on in here at the end of the day. So that's an important topic in itself. It's for another time, another place. But we'll probably wrap things up. I know you have, it's only limited time. You want?
Just a little. I mean, I got a little family thing going on.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, I know time is valuable, and I'm just appreciative of you taking the time to even, come here. I know your time in town is limited. That's right. There's so many people, I'm sure, want to check on you and just, shout you out like, hey, what's going on? But, you even reached out to me, which is something that I always hold valuable. You've been someone who's been there for me in some of like the toughest times ever in life, despite whether or not you know it. And, I want this platform here is to not just give you your flowers, but, for you to, I want your story to come out how I don't feel as if other news outlets might be able to really get it out, because, I do have the luxury of being able to call you a brother. And, I want you to know that the city's proud of you. I'm proud of you. Your parents are proud of you. My parents are proud. Everybody's proud of you. And that, keep your head high. Keep healing yourself in all aspects. Focus on health. Focus on love. You're about to enter in a new chapter as well. And, I can't tell you how proud of you, how much proud of you we are. And we want you to, just keep on striving for whatever it is that your aspirations, dreams, and ideas take you, because I feel as it all starts with self. You know what I mean? Like, for you to start that organization is something that only you are meant to do that. And you are helping people, despite whether or not you feel like you made that, you couldn't give a bike out this week or today or anything along those lines. It's like you're making a change in which it's helping someone's family. And I think that we all, doesn't matter what role we play, whether it's in a professional athlete, a dentist, a doctor, unemployed, we all have that opportunity to be that person for somebody else. And I gotta tip my hat off to you for you could just be relaxing being an athlete, but it's something that you continue to push forward. I implore all the young athletes to make sure you pay attention to this guy right here, because he has been an amazing template for how to do it as a Canadian athlete, not only a Canadian athlete, but for all athletes around the world. And I gotta say, I love you, my brother.
Hey, I appreciate you. And before you close it out, man, I do want to say I appreciate you making me a part of this journey you're going into, man. This is big, and as much as you may not realize it now, we're gonna look back in 10 years and we're gonna see this episode right here.
Better production for sure.
I will be very excited to see the path you took, man, and I've been excited to see the path you took. You dedicate yourself to your craft so fervorously on a daily basis, and every time I come back and I visit, man, you're always just grinding. You're always just grinding, and regardless of the result now or tomorrow or whatever it is, bro, just keep doing your thing, and it will pay off, man. And consistency.
That's a key word. Consistency.
And I'm really proud of you, bro.
I appreciate
more than anything, I'm really proud of you. So it's all love, man. Like
always. Anything you ever need, a voice, a topic that you want to get out into the world, just this platform is here first and foremost for you at all times. At all times. So we got a little gift for you. We gotta make sure that you make it black at the end of the day.
Make it black.
Don't forget. I think it was double XL. Yeah.
It'll fit.
Perfect.
It'll fit.
All right.
And if it doesn't right now, it will.
It will. We're gonna make sure you get you that custom one. We're gonna get you dripped out.
I appreciate it, brother.
All right, brother. Love you, back. Always.
Absolutely.
Bro, that was great.
Sensational.
Hey. Whoa.
Ayy, peppermint, cinnamon, baby girl, 10 to 10. Love me now, in a minute. Come around, yeah, she did.